Every experiencer has to overcome ontological shock, and we have to do it while the world says we're crazy. At Parawareness, we explore life through the paranormal lens, emphasizing psychology and spirituality over technology. This is Parawareness. Hi, I'm Tony with Parawareness, and I'm here to talk about some of the famous people who are telling you about all this TI stuff. Okay, I'm here to talk to you about hearing voices. I'm here to talk to you about getting things inhabiting your body, touching your body, all of these crazy things that are happening to so many people around the world. Okay, I'm here to talk about this because the point of the Parawareness channel is that we don't think that it's only this human technology, and that seeing it through that lens is actually hurting people. It's actually causing you, because what is the most important thing? It's gnosis. It is knowledge. It is actually understanding and looking at the big picture. I hear a lot of people say in the communities, in the targeted individual, and in these types of communities, I hear them say, "I know what's happening to me. I know who's doing it to me. It's my neighbors. It's these people." And that always expands. It starts with, it's my neighbors, and then it starts with, it's the community. My community's all after me, and then it's the government, and then it's the, and it keeps on. And the more that they learn, and the more that they study, the more that they realize that these are misunderstandings. It's a form of the Dunning-Kruger effect, in my opinion, because the more that you study this, the more that you realize that it's not just human current technology. Now, maybe it is partially. In one of my Normal Guy News videos, I talked about hearing voices and the history of hearing voices, but apparently, that's not enough for some people, because you can say, all right, well, look, people were hearing voices in the Bible. Every person who's ever thought that they got a spiritual communication, almost all of them heard a voice, and then they felt things, and then they saw things. They had strange experiences. And now we look at those and we go, well, that must be the government or a different country. It must be some human beings attacking me with technology. But let's start with the 3 templates. There are 3 basic templates of what could be happening today to people. And the number 1 is human technology. All right. So human technology is number 1. Number 2, let's go with spirituality. All right. So it's some sort of a spiritual thing. Now, under this template, each template has subcategories, right? So under the human tech, you've got, they were gifted technology from aliens. Maybe that's what it was, right? But under the spiritual tab, you've also got, how is spirituality involved with aliens or ancient beings? It's pretty clear, in my opinion, that there were civilizations before our current iteration of humanity. So what was going on then? We don't know. But there are 3 main templates, as I was saying: human tech, spirituality, or aliens. And those all get mixed together, and there are all different stories. There are so many stories out there, but you can have all these different stories that combine different versions of these. That there are draconian, there are lizard people who have studied magic and basically witchcraft, and so they are dragon witches. And I'm not saying that that's not possible, right? It might be possible. But so I want to look today. Sabrina Wallace is seen as kind of the guru of the targeted individual. And I want to look today at Sabrina Wallace, and she throws out all these technical terms, and it's wonderful. She's doing her research. She really sees how these technologies could be used, like the fact that your Fitbit, your smartwatch, it can read all of your biology. It can read all of your biosenses, right? It can tell you your heart rate. It can tell you all these different things. They can read your heart rate. They can tell you your glucose. They can tell you, all these different things. They can tell you what kind of mood you're in. It's crazy. But Sabrina Wallace sees all of this as clear proof, 100%, that it's all human technology that's doing this to every one of us, the people like me. I've been going through this for 10 years, right? I have plenty of videos on the internet about it. If you haven't seen my channel, Parawareness, I have plenty of videos on the internet about it. And at Parawareness, we try to take a stance that we don't know what's happening. That's number one. Number one thing is we don't know what this is. And here's why we don't know. Because Sabrina says that this is all about that praying the Wi-Fi away doesn't work, is what her newest video says, right? You can't pray the Wi-Fi away. You people are delusional. You're delusional if you think that spirituality is the cause of this thing. She's got all of this technology talking about medical wireless body area networks and medical area networks and medical body area networks. I'm not used to this terminology. Medical body area networks and wireless body area networks. And she wants us to start learning these terms so that we can use these terms that are used by the military to fight them. That once we know all this terminology and we can just spout it off like she can, and she can sit there and just run a mile a minute, just so fast. She's had some coffee too, hasn't she? But so she can spout them off so fast, and she wants us all to do that. She wants us all to get in line with, you've got to know all of this terminology, and then you've got to be able to spout it so you can recite it, so you can know it like it is scripture, like it's the gospel. You've got to know it like it's your Bible. You've got to know it like it is your truth. But let's look at some other things, all right? Let's look at what the history is of these exact same symptoms that people like me have. And if you're watching this video, there's a good chance that you've had these symptoms as well, right? Okay. So in the history of, people having weird experiences, people right now, they'll say, oh, I'm experiencing voice to skull. Oh no, I'm having voice to skull technology beamed into my head. Did you know that, what about the case of Sister, I guess her name, I'm going to butcher a lot of names here today. Jean d'Angus. She's French. She's from France. So in 1634, there was a famous case of possessions, an explosion of possessions in 1634 in France. And the Mother Superior, Sister Angus, the Mother Superior detailed hearing constant invisible voices in her ears. 1634, almost 400 years ago. Just bear with me. We've got plenty of things to cover here. So we're talking about voice to skull. In 1634, Sister Angus said this was happening to her, and this was a case of the famous Loudun possessions in France. Go look that up if you want. So she noted that the voices did not feel like her own thoughts. They were crisp, external, and whispered constant blasphemies, insults, and psychological warfare to break her down. All right, now let's move on. So in the 1600s, there was a thing called the transmission vector. All right, it was believed to be unseen demons or spirits occupying the local air, or the ether, if you want to call it that, right? So in the 1600s, there was the thing that they called the transmission vector, and it was unseen demons and spirits that were occupying the air around these people. And then nowadays, what we call that is microwave hearing frequencies and intra-body communication, right? Okay, now, how about the electronic harassment, okay? So people have these physical sensations of being burned, being stabbed, invisible needles, organs being squeezed. I personally end up having my old injuries squeezed, like tortured. Like if you have a wound and somebody sticks their finger in it, twists it. That's what it feels like what I'm going through, okay? So let's go back to in the Malleus Maleficarum. That's a great set of words there, isn't it? The Malleus Maleficarum in 1486. We're going way back now, aren't we? Almost 600 years ago. The Malleus Maleficarum. This infamous witch hunting manual acts like an engineering handbook for 15th century harassment, quote unquote harassment. It contains dozens of case studies of people describing invisible attacks. Victims reported waking up with localized burning sensations, feeling like invisible pins were piercing their flesh, or experiencing sudden, excruciating internal pain while walking in public. That's exactly what I go through. That's exactly what many of you go through. If you're not a targeted individual, or don't consider yourself, if you're not having these strange experiences that I call the phenomenon, and many people call it that, because once you do your research, you realize it's not one thing. It encompasses a lot of different categories. Like I said, there's these three main templates, and there's a million different ways you can look at it. All right, so let's just keep going. 1486, Malleus Maleficarum. People walk around in the 15th century feeling invisible pins piercing their flesh, sudden excruciating internal pain while they're walking in public, invisible attacks. All right, how about let's jump up to 1712, the trial of Jane Wyndham. In one of England's last witchcraft trials, victims claimed Wyndham was using invisible forces to make them feel heavy, pinning them to their beds. Sleep paralysis, right? Pinning them to their beds and causing sudden, sharp internal pains from a distance. So the great, witch hunts, Jane Wyndham in 1712, these victims claimed that she was doing this to them. All right. So yeah, the pricking, burning, localized pressure. I get that a lot. Localized pressure. I'll just get a pressure. Right now, I'm feeling a pressure on my left shoulder that I feel a lot of the day, right in here. So now what people see that as is directed energy or micro vibration targeting. Okay? Gangstalking. Organized surveillance by unseen covens. Okay, now this is a big one. There's people who believe that it's all witchcraft being done to us and that there are these covens of witches that are attacking us. Maybe they are. The point of this show, of this video, and this whole channel, of course, is not to say, here's what it is. It's to point out the fact that you don't know what it is, right? Sorry. Okay, so let's continue. Number 3, gang stalking. A core element of the modern TI experience is gang stalking or street theater, the belief that everyday citizens, neighbors, and strangers are part of a coordinated network orchestrating subtle, synchronized psychological harassment. All right. In the 16th, 17th centuries, individuals experiencing intense paranoia or targeting didn't blame intelligence agencies. They believed they were being tracked by a vast, localized hidden network of witches and devil worshippers. This is in the 1600s. People thought they were being tracked by a network, a hidden network of witches and devil worshippers, and being attacked by them. Go look it up. I'm getting this information from the internet. This is not, this is from a chat bot. This is obviously, I'm reading from a chat bot. This is real information. Go look it up. The Salem witch trials, other witch trials. All right, so the victims would claim that people in their village were exchanging, and this is very important for all you guys, that the people in their village were exchanging secret signs or looks to signal they were being watched. So these people would exchange a sign with the TI in 1630, right? They would look at him and the TI would go, "Oh, they're telling me. They're telling me." If a neighbor coughed as they walked by, or turned a cart around unexpectedly, like a car turning around unexpectedly, only having one headlight, someone coughing, your neighbor coughing every time you walk outside, and you go, that's a sign. Was it a sign in 1600? Well, then it wasn't technology, was it? All right, so yeah, if a neighbor coughed as they walked by or turned a cart around unexpectedly, it wasn't viewed as a random event. It was interpreted as part of a highly organized systemic harassment campaign conducted by a hidden coven. All right. Let's go on to the symptom link here is the underlying psychological architecture, hypervigilance, interpreting random environmental cues as coordinated threats, and believing a large secretive group is dedicated to your ruin. It's identical to the gangstalking of today. Now, let's move on to the final section here, which is synthetic telepathy and the loss of mental privacy. Many TIs report that their thoughts are being read or broadcasted to others. They call, thought broadcasting, or that foreign thoughts are being implanted into their brains. The compulsion records of St. Augustine in the 4th century. Now we're going back to the year 300. 1700 years ago. Long before computers, the early Christian church deeply analyzed the concept of alien thoughts. Augustine and later theologians wrote extensively about individuals who felt their minds were completely transparent to invisible entities, or who suffered from thoughts that felt entirely foreign and forcefully injected into their consciousness against their will. All the people in the Parawareness Discord group we've experienced, almost every single one of us. I don't like to use absolutes like all, but almost every single person in our group has experienced thought injection. We interviewed a guy named Jerry Marzinski in our second episode of Parawareness, and he talks about this as well. That he was going along with his dog who he loves, and he had a machete in his hand because he was doing some tree work and trimming some trees and stuff with a machete, and he had a sudden thought and an urge like, I should chop off the dog's head with this machete. Came out of nowhere. Totally felt foreign to him, felt injected. In my Normal Guy News video called If It Bleeds, It Leads, I talk about hearing voices and what it could be. And I show that the history of voice hearing goes all the way back to how many people in the Bible heard voices. How many famous, successful people have heard voices and experienced things like this. You can also look at the story of the wounded healer, and you can look at the fact that Socrates felt like he was tortured into becoming this powerful, world-changing voice, that then he was executed for becoming that voice, right? Similar to how, Galileo was imprisoned for the last part of his life because he had the gall to create these inventions and then say, hey, we're not the center of the universe. And the church was like, well, no, you don't get to say that Earth is not the center of the universe. So you had Joan of Arc, who ended up being this incredible spiritual leader and this incredible, wartime leader, military leader. And she went through torture. She went through this torturous time with hearing voices and feeling, attacked by demons and all this stuff. And what did it do? It forced her, maybe she was a little, too intense, sure, but it forced her to find her greatest path forward, because it challenged her on a level she wouldn't have been challenged before. So with all this being said, I'm not going to tell you that I know what's happening. I'm certainly not going to say that. And I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't be, concerned about it, because believe you me, every single day, I feel these strange interactions. I feel things touching me on all different parts of my body. It feels like things are inhabiting my body. I know for a fact, as I talked about in one of my recent Normal Guy News videos, the government is going to try to sell us that this is all demonic and that these are demons that are attacking us. And when you look at the history of when we take away that it's all human technology and we look at the history of these same exact symptoms, then we say, okay, well, is it mental illness or is it demon interactions? There is another, remember the three templates: human, spiritual, which would include the demons, or aliens, right? Now, regardless of whether it's aliens, and remember, J.D. Vance said, I don't think they're aliens. I think they're demons anyway. But here's the thing. Regardless of what it is, throughout human history, there have been forces greater than us. Some people called it God. Some people called it aliens. Some people look at them as, in a Jungian way, as they are archetypal, ancient energies, you know. Some people, like Dana Kipple, look at it as it's the plasma field. And whatever we believe, we interact with the plasma field around us, kind of like the Force in Star Wars. And whatever we focus on and believe, we can actually create. As Jesus was able to do a form of magic, we can do that too with our beliefs and our intentions and interacting physically with the plasma field around us, right? The point is that this stuff has always been with us. We don't know what it is. And for Sabrina Wallace to come out and say, you can't pray away the Wi-Fi, she might be right. Okay, I'm not saying she's wrong. I respect what she does. She's done a lot of work, and she's very well versed in her own dogma. You know what I mean? Like, she's very well versed in her own script. So that's good for her. But every single time I talk to anyone in one of these communities that says, I know, red flag goes up. Because you don't know. You can have ideas, you can have opinions, you can have a field of study. But once you combine all of the fields of study, and that is the point of the Parawareness channel and the Parawareness Discord server, once you combine all of these different fields of study, you realize that, okay, there is something happening that we can label as the phenomenon. That's all we can really call it. It is a happening. It is a thing. And it's through all these every different culture. It's through every different age of humanity. And it's present in a million different forms, and it tends to take the label that we put upon it and build on that label. In my opinion, this is just my personal thing. It's because we are creating this world as a collective. We're creating our experience in a Tom Campbell's theory of everything kind of way, that consciousness is fundamental. You know, and that is where all this comes from. And the more that we build up these creations, the more that we'll have to deal with them. The more that they'll become reality, and then we'll have to deal with that reality. Be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. So I think that's all I have to say about this today. Go, before you believe Sabrina Wallace, go look at the history of what I'm talking about here. And then also go ahead and research what Sabrina is talking about with wireless body area networks and medical body area networks. It could be related. Like I say, I think the government is going to try to tell us this is all demons, and they're going to use a lot of our Christian-based beliefs or our theological-based beliefs. They're going to use those to scare us into some sort of a control mechanism. But I don't know what's happening. I'm just a guy living in a little bitty apartment, trying to help everybody understand things. So thanks for watching. See you later.